Hi everybody, welcome back to the Crime Lab. Today's serial killer is Ali Asghar Borujerdi. I think that's how you pronounce it. As I've said in past videos, I am not the best at pronouncing things, especially if they are international, because I only speak English, unfortunately. So I will do my best with all of my pronunciations. But feel free to call me out in the comments if I am pronouncing something absolutely terribly. And feel free to, if you know how to pronounce it, spell it out phonetically so that I know. Or, show me how it should be pronounced, I guess. So he is known as Asghar the Murderer. He was born in 1893 in Borujer, Iran. And he is the first known Iranian serial killer and rapist reported in the 20th century. Like I said, he was born in Iran, but moved to Iraq as a child with his family. He had two brothers named Reza and Taghi, and one older sister. I could not find the name of his sister. His family actually had a history of criminal activity, so it's not unheard of that he would have been involved in some sort of criminal activities. Within his family, theft, murder, and defamation was actually not unheard of. His grandfather, Zulfali, was a bandit that robbed caravans in Borujd, Malayer, and Arak, and sometimes murdering the caravan owners. So think like Silk Road, where people would travel with like horses and camels and stuff to trade spices, cloth, stuff from like China and the Middle East going to Europe. Those sort of caravans would be robbed by Asghar's grandfather. And his father, Ali Mirza, was also a known bandit that had killed 40 plus civilians with his bare hands. And that is actually what led to the Borujerdi family needing to move from Iran to Iraq. And on the way to Mashhad, Mirza, so the father, was killed by the Persian Cossack brigade in Iran. So like a military brigade killed Asghar's father. And the family continued to Iraq under, so the rest of the family, his siblings and his mom, continued to Iraq under the pretext that they were doing the Karbala pilgrimage, which from what I was able to find is like a religious pilgrimage. So they were able to continue on their travels. And Asghar began assaulting, raping, and later murdering teenage boys in Baghdad, which is where they had moved to at around 14 years old. So this would have been about 1907, roughly. And he, after he eventually escapes back to Iran. Many years later, getting a little ahead of myself. But he was able to, after many years of doing crimes in Iraq, he did go back to Iran, but I'll come back to that. So in Iraq, he would sell snacks to other children and adolescents, so, young men and teenagers, and he would make friends with them. That's how he made friends. And he would promise them treats, but then would assault and molest them instead. So he would be like, hey, come over here. I've got, I don't know, some peanuts or something. I don't know what they snack on over there at the time. I've got these snacks over here. Come here into this alley or into this old building. I've got some over here. And he would assault them. And at 14, he was arrested and prosecuted for abuse of other children. Awesome. Obviously, he was not kept in prison or jail or, he was not kept detained. Otherwise, a lot of this could have been avoided, you know. He was in prison, but released due to his young age. And at the time, he was not considered a serious threat. And his victim's parents were actually the ones that were like, yeah, fine, he's 14. He'll probably grow out of it. So they were like, yeah, that's fine to release him. And then he was arrested again a few years later and sentenced to 9 years for molesting and assaulting 5 children in Baghdad. So at 27, he was released and ordered to stay away from children, essentially like a modern day child molester or a pedophile. They're given the order to stay away from children. You have to stay a certain distance away. And he had to not do any activities that could lead to potential interactions with children. And unfortunately, he did not do that. He was still around children, and during this period, he actually killed 25 children and adolescents, unfortunately. So when he went back to Iran, he did eventually escape back to Iran after conviction. In 1933, he continued murdering in Tehran, which, wait, I'm a little ahead of myself, so I'm going to come back to that as well. So he did leave Iraq and went back to Iran. He did not return to Borohar. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I could be very wrong. Settled in Tehran's Rezi Khan caravanserai, where he kept busy with athletics. He would target young male teenagers that had come to look for work. And during this time, he killed 8 people and dumped their bodies in the southern part of the city. And then ultimately the discoveries of the bodies in furnaces and aqueducts in the Minudast village became a source of fear. So leading to his arrest, like I said, he had gone back to Iran in 1933, where he had continued his murders in Tehran. He was eventually arrested, and ultimately he would be executed. And he was convicted of raping and killing 33 young adults, 8 in Tehran and 25 in Baghdad. So that's kind of the grand total. And leading up to his arrest, in January of 1933, a lost teenager in Kala Karabay, I am so terrible with pronunciation, so I am sorry, south of Tehran, found the body of a boy and quickly told the authorities in the area of the body being found. This part gets a little information dense, so I'm reading off of my notes. So authorities discovered 2 more bodies, both under 20 years old, and that had been killed in recent weeks. February 23rd, another skull was found in Laleh Park, but the body was never found. And then a 31-year-old's headless body was found in the Aminabad district of Dalatab. I'm gonna suck at pronouncing this, so I am very sorry. Daulatabad. And then Sardar Timur Khan, an inspector from Tehran, was put in charge of the murders. So he was in charge of the investigation. And then on March 10th of 1933, authorities came across Asghar in the desert selling porterage and asked about his history and employment, just trying to figure out, had he seen anything? Did he know anything? Who is this guy? Claimed he was selling okra, and the police didn't doubt him until they saw a bunch of bloody clothes and a bloody knife. then they, of course, started having doubts. He claimed to have bought it from the market near Shah Abdul Azim Shrine, and the rest of the items were his tools. But because the police doubted him, he was arrested to bring in for more questioning, more investigation. And so then during that time, the police visited Asghar's residence in the Reza Khan Caravanserai and questioned his neighbors, being like, hey, who is this guy? What do you know about him? And they said that Asghar had actually introduced all these boys as his younger brothers. So they didn't really think too much about it. They were just like, oh, he must have a really large family. So like I said, he'd been arrested. They were in the process of investigating him. So during his trial, so trial has started, he's being interrogated quite a bit, he admits the clothes that the police had found with him when he was originally arrested were from a teenager named Ali that worked alongside him. Claims that the boy had run away. Asghar found him, raped him, and murdered him. Then he eventually admitted to raping and murdering a total of 8 children in Iran and 25 in Iraq. So trial begins 1934, so the following year after he's arrested, for charges of rape and murder. So the court sentenced him to 9 years in prison and subsequent execution. So he was life in prison, and death penalty. And the verdict was actually upheld by the Supreme Court of Iran. So they had every intention of doing that. And he explained, the way that he explained his crimes, and this is an exact quote from him: "These are people without parents. They are useless and beautiful. When their facial hair starts to grow, they become thieves. I have enmity with them. These are the enemies of society. Because of that, I have killed them. I was so excited when outside of my country, as I have killed a lot of them. That is why I came here, seeing that they were here, and kill them." So he just wanted to kill them because he found them as essentially scum of the earth. He did not think that they were worthy of life. So he was ultimately executed July 6th of 1934, early in the morning in Tupkahena, in front of the country's national justice system. And at first, when he was being brought to where he was going to be killed, he was, joking around with the guards, having a good laugh with them. And then when he saw the rope where he was going to be hung, he was extremely, extremely fearful and kind of started to panic. So total, like I said, he killed about 33 people that he's willing to admit to. He could have killed many, many more. But we will never know now that he's dead. He was a murderer. He did it because he wanted to. He saw these people as scum of the earth and just wanted to get rid of them, which made him no better. Because I know a lot of serial killers, they do it for the money, or they do it because it makes them feel powerful. He just did it because he wanted to. If anybody has any suggestions for future videos, or you have somebody in mind that you'd like me to talk about, leave it in the comments and I will look into them. Any comments, concerns, emotional outbursts, feel free to leave those in the comments as well. I always enjoy reading them.